actually. That's mycelium. Michigan, we good for fruiting fruits, right? So like tomatoes, apples, and stuff like that. And we got great soil over there closer to Ohio. That's where you get good tomatoes and no, good potatoes from. But regionally, the U.S. is known for being able to grow essentially anything anywhere, right? And so now, don't get me wrong, you can have things that like a warmer climate and you in a cooler place in the U.S., but with human intervention, you can then control your climate, and it really doesn't matter. But based on where things naturally grow great at, is that's simply based on the temperature and the humidity thing. It's not necessarily a region thing because it's only a slight difference in plants when we talk about different soils and stuff like that. For example, if you was to grow a tomato in Florida soil and you was to grow a tomato in Michigan soil, they would taste like the soils or the respective microbials in the soils. And so those microbials is what really give you the difference. But it's not necessarily a different place because you can go to Florida and get their soil and then
Mm.
you grow it, and now your tomatoes taste like Florida tomatoes because you was able to maintain the same humidity and temperature.
So how much of a difference does me taking, like, okay, so let's say we take some Florida soil, bring it up to here to Michigan, grow tomatoes in it. How much of a difference is it going to be because it's in Michigan, even though it has the same soil?
It's going to be a great difference because those microbials, one, what we feed our plants here may not be accessible for those plants. And so what will be fed naturally in those areas is what we would try to strive for. But essentially, it's still a way to maintain the microbial life by feeding the microbials. And long as you can feed the microbials, you can cultivate more. And so you can take that soil and then cultivate it for about 2, 3 months, and then use that soil to cultivate more soil, essentially making more quote unquote Florida microbials.
Mm.
Hmm.
Now, you talked about the differences between the temperature and the water, which is I I would focus more on what the water is, but I never even thought to think about temperature. Now, as far as soils and pots, it seemed like the soil is the most important thing. So starting off, what type of pot should people use based on if they're growing fruits or seasonings or herb, like, and what type of soil
Mm.
should you start off with? Are there pro level soils that need to be treated a certain way? Is it rookie
Yeah.
soils?
So the first question, well, I'm gonna start with the last one. When it comes to soils, the difference in rookie soils and pro soils is pro soils usually don't have nothing in them and they're clean to where the pros can add what they want to put in there,
Mm.
right? Whether it's cultivate them naturally, whether it's adding artificial nutrients or salt-based nutrients. And the newbie level, they have nutrients in there and they tell you that you can grow these type of plants at this level and you'll be able to get a nice quote unquote comeback, or this is the probable yield you should expect. And so, with that being said, what was the question before the soil?
um, what type of pots?
Oh, yes, pot. So, I'm glad you said that. So, when it comes to like strawberries, potatoes, things that grow a certain way, like potatoes grow under the ground, right? Beets grow under the ground, carrots under the ground. And so, technically, we would define these as roots. They're not take fruits, roots, give or take, same difference.
So how do you know if you're getting too much light or not enough
So,
light?
too much light, you get something which is called light bleaching. So usually light bleaching and burning, but burning more commonly comes from a fan or too much air on a specific area, not direct light. But direct light, I say you will get albino like spots on your plants, right? So you at the tip of your plant that's too close to the light, where it's too close, it'll turn completely white or it'll just brown up and crisping, right? And so too much light is extremely bad, but too much light can be good if you have enough temperature control and humidity control because plants still need to eat.
Right. No facts. Okay. Now, as far as repotting plants, what is the purpose of repotting a plant, and when should somebody repot a plant? And if you do pot it, what type of soil should you use? Should you be using the same soil? Should you be
Mm. So with repotting, you usually repot when you plan on having a plant alive for a longer amount of time. So a 1 gallon pot is probably about a month. A 2.5 gallon pot probably about 3 months. 3.5 gallon pot about 6 months. And so if your plant is not going to live for 6 months, or you want to grow it bigger than it usually grows, then you'll go for the 3.5 gallon pot. But if your plant only going to live about 2.5 months, you can go for the 2 gallon pot. And the only time you transfer up is when your roots it get quote unquote root stunted. When your roots hit the end of the the pot and they start to fold back on each other. Now it can work uh, as a double-edged sword because that then causes the roots to strengthen, and so that would be prime time to transplant. But if you wait too long, you get root stunted, and then you have negative effects. And
Mm,
so when you do transfer up, you when you transfer your pot or your plant from a different pot, depending on if it's going in the flowering, like for example, if it was a tomato plant, I have my growing soil, then I have my flowering soil, and which has a different ratio of the same nutrients. And so, if it's a plant that I just want to get bigger or live longer, it's the same nutrients, same soil, just bigger pot. But if it's a transition in the growth pattern, then it's a different ratio of nutrients.
mm. So what are some telltale signs that your roots are overgrowing, or like does that cause a problem, or do the roots are the roots able to contain themselves?
By the time you see a problem, it's too late when it comes to that. So
Mm,
that's where having plastic pots is important because as a newer grower, when the soil dries up, the root zone slightly shrinks. And so you can look down and push your finger and push the soil to the side, and you'll be able to see if the roots are all the way on the wall or not. And but if your roots get too far on the wall, your roots will start yellowing, and then you will slightly start seeing different deficiencies or toxicities in the plant because the plant is no longer able to absorb nutrients in a proper way. And so the nutrients that are available may not be in the so you may give it the right amount of nutrients, but it's not able to absorb it, which causes it to have a deficiency, or it absorbs too much of something to account for something else, which then causes the toxicity.
What's the word, y'all? It's Double R the God tapping in with y'all. Y'all just got done watching a snippet of the God Pod. I appreciate y'all for watching and staying tuned. If you would like to see the full episode, make sure y'all head over to legacythewave.net or my Instagram subscriptions or YouTube subscriptions. I'd appreciate it if you guys went to my website. We're trying to get people onto our own platforms and get away from social media and just, support having our fan base support us directly. So I really appreciate if you guys head over that way. If not, you still like to be on Instagram, you can subscribe to us there. Also, drop some comments, like, subscribe, and if you like to see any specific guests on the podcast, be sure to comment below. We also got Just Waking Up, the Spiritual Guidebook. So if you getting into your spiritual journey and you want to understand some of these concepts like the chakras, the third eye, just spirituality in general, be sure to check this out. Much love. One.
Yeah, I really got this shit in the bag right now. Bad bitch in the front seat, car go fast right now. Smoke dope, but we low key though. Had to give him the okey doke. Like I'm so straight, I'ma just pass right now. Nigga need that bread like Peter. Everything I do for a reason. If you break that code, it's treason. Every one of my dogs, I'm bleeding. Every one of my dogs, I need them. Locked down, free that pen, not breathing. I do this shit for a reason. I don't do this shit for no reason. What you wanna know, I won't lie.